My daughter left her 5-year-old autistic son on my doorstep and never came back. That was 11 years ago. I raised Connor myself, and everyone said he'd never succeed. Too different. Too difficult. They were wrong. By 16, he'd built software worth $3.2 million. Then the news covered his story, and 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang. Isabel stood there with a lawyer and documents claiming she'd been involved the whole time. Custody papers, financial records, visit logs, all lies, but they looked real. Our lawyer said without proof they were forged, we might lose everything. I panicked. Connor didn't. He leaned over and whispered, "Let her talk." I stared at him. We were about to lose everything, and he wanted her to keep lying. But he just sat there, calm, watching. I had no idea what he was about to do. My name is Frances Harrington. I'm 68 years old, and this is my story. It started on a Friday in November 2010. I was folding laundry in my living room when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw my daughter Isabel standing on my porch with Connor beside her. He was clutching a small backpack, staring down at his shoes. Even through the distorted glass, I could see him rocking back and forth. I opened the door. "Isabel, what are you—" "Just for the weekend, Mom." Her voice was tight, strained. "Please, I need a break. I just need a break." Connor stood perfectly still beside her, hands pressed over his ears even though we weren't making any noise. He was wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt that was too small for him and jeans with a hole in one knee. His dark hair needed cutting, hanging in his eyes. "Honey, what's going on?" I reached for her arm, but she pulled back. "I can't do this anymore." Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for hours. "I'll call you Sunday. I promise." "Isabel, wait!" But she was already turning away, walking fast toward her beat-up Honda in the driveway. She didn't hug Connor, didn't kiss him goodbye, didn't even look back at him, just got in her car and drove away. I watched her taillights disappear down the street, my heart pounding. Connor kept rocking, heel to toe, his small hands still covering his ears. "Hey, Connor," I said softly, crouching down to his level. "Do you want to come inside? I have those animal crackers you like." He didn't look at me, didn't move, just kept rocking. I picked up his backpack. It was so light it startled me. Too light for a weekend stay. I unzipped it right there on the porch. 2 pairs of underwear, 1 shirt, no toothbrush. My chest tightened. "Come on, sweetie, let's go in where it's warm." I opened the door wider and waited. After what felt like forever, Connor walked past me into the house, his hands still pressed to his ears. He moved stiffly, like each step required careful thought. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. Connor flinched, his whole body going rigid. The heater clicked on. He pressed his hands tighter against his head, his face scrunching up. I'd taught elementary school for 35 years. I'd had a few autistic students mainstreamed into my classroom over the decades, always with aides and specialists handling the hard parts. But standing there watching my grandson, I realized I knew almost nothing about actually living with autism. About what happened when the specialists went home and it was just you and a terrified child who couldn't tell you what was wrong. I closed the door as quietly as I could. Connor was already in the living room, crouched in the corner by my bookshelf, making himself as small as possible. "Are you hungry?" I asked. Nothing. His eyes were fixed on the carpet. "Thirsty?" He rocked faster. I went to the kitchen and poured water into a blue plastic sippy cup I kept from his rare visits. Those visits were maybe twice a year, always short, always awkward. Isabel would sit on the couch looking exhausted while Connor wandered around my house touching things, and I never knew what to say to either of them. I brought the cup back and set it on the floor about an arm's length away from him. He stopped rocking for just a second, looked at the cup with cartoon dinosaurs on it, then went back to rocking. That first night was worse than I could have imagined. I made chicken nuggets and French fries for dinner because Isabel had once mentioned that's what Connor ate. I arranged them carefully on his favorite blue plate, the one with the cartoon train on it that I'd bought years ago. Connor took one look and turned his whole body away from the table. "It's okay, honey. It's your favorite." He started humming, a low sound in his throat, and stared at the wall. I tried pasta. He pushed the bowl away so hard it nearly fell off the table. I tried a peanut butter sandwich. Same response. "Connor, what do you want to eat?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, and he flinched. I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm sorry. I need to know what you'll eat. The humming got louder. Finally, I gave him crackers, plain saltines from the cabinet. He ate 3, slowly, methodically, then pushed the plate away and went back to the corner by the bookshelf. Bedtime was an absolute disaster. I led him to the guest room, the one with the blue walls and the wooden bed I'd bought at a yard sale years ago. I'd put fresh sheets on it that afternoon, the ones with little stars. I thought he might like those. Okay, let's get ready for bed. Do you need to brush your teeth? I guided him toward the bathroom. The moment I reached for the toothbrush, he screamed. Not crying, not upset, screaming like I was hurting him, like I was doing something terrible. His whole face went red, tears streaming down his cheeks. I dropped the toothbrush and stepped back. He stopped screaming immediately but stood there shaking, his breath coming in short gasps. Okay, I said, my own hands trembling. Okay, you can skip it tonight. It's okay. I got him into the bedroom and tried to tuck the blanket around him the way I thought kids liked, snug and cozy. He threw it off. I tried again, thinking maybe I'd done it wrong. He screamed again and kicked at the blanket. I left it at the foot of the bed and backed out of the room, my heart racing. Good night, Connor. I'm right down the hall if you need me. He didn't sleep. I could hear him humming all night, that same low sound, over and over and over. I didn't sleep either. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to that hum, wondering what I'd gotten myself into, wondering if Isabel was coming back, wondering if I could do this. Saturday morning came too early. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Connor appeared in the doorway, still wearing his Spider-Man shirt from yesterday. His hair was sticking up on one side and he had dark circles under his eyes. Good morning, sweetie. Are you hungry? He didn't answer, just stood there, rocking slightly. I made scrambled eggs and toast. Simple, plain. I cut the toast corner to corner and put everything on the blue plate, making sure nothing touched. I'd read somewhere that autistic kids didn't like foods touching. Connor ate. Not much, but he ate. That felt like a victory. After breakfast, I called Isabel. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. Rachel, honey, it's Mom. Call me back. I need to know what Connor eats, what his routines are. Please call me. She didn't call. I tried again Saturday night. Sunday morning, Sunday night, nothing. On Monday, I called her apartment. A man answered, someone I didn't know. Isabel doesn't live here anymore, moved out last week. Do you know where she went? Nope, left most of her stuff too. Just grabbed some clothes and took off. I hung up and sat down at my kitchen table, staring at Connor's blue cup. 1 week, I told myself. She said she needed a break. She'll come back. But deep down, in that place where mothers know things, I knew she wasn't coming back. 2 weeks later, I took Connor to see Dr. Robert Hayes, the pediatrician who'd been in practice since before Isabel was born. Connor sat on the examination table, swinging his legs and staring at the poster of the alphabet on the wall. Dr. Hayes was in his 60s, with kind eyes and gray hair. He'd seen it all. He examined Connor gently, asked him questions Connor didn't answer, watched how he moved and reacted. Finally, he sat down across from me and folded his hands. Mrs. Harrington, Connor shows clear signs of autism spectrum disorder. Has anyone talked to you about getting him evaluated? His mother was supposed to handle that. My voice sounded hollow. Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. Well, you're handling it now. I'm going to give you referrals for speech therapy, occupational therapy, and behavioral therapy. He needs all 3. And you'll need to get him into a developmental pediatrician for a formal diagnosis and treatment plan. I took the papers he handed me, my hands shaking. The list was overwhelming. Appointments, specialists, evaluations, therapies. I was 68 years old. I'd been retired for 3 years. I was supposed to be taking painting classes and going to book club, not raising an autistic 5-year-old. Can I do this? I whispered. Dr. Hayes looked at me seriously. Honestly, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. But I've known you a long time, Francis. If anyone can do it, you can. I wanted to believe him. The next 3 months were a blur of appointments and learning. Speech therapy with Jennifer Walsh, a patient woman in her 30s who taught Connor to use picture cards to communicate. Occupational therapy with David Park, who worked on Connor's sensory issues, the sounds and textures and touches that overwhelmed him. Behavioral therapy with Dr. Amy Chen, who helped me understand why Connor did the things he did. I learned that Connor needed the same breakfast every single day. Scrambled eggs, toast cut corner to corner, nothing touching on the plate. If I varied it even slightly, he wouldn't eat. I learned that the route to therapy had to be exactly the same every time. Or he'd scream in the car. Same turns, same streets, same parking spot if possible. I learned not to touch him unless he initiated it. Not to force eye contact. Not to talk too much or too loud. Most importantly, I learned to watch instead of doing. To observe what Connor needed instead of assuming I knew. It was exhausting. Some days I'd collapse on the couch after putting Connor to bed and just cry. I missed my quiet life. I missed knowing what I was doing. I missed my daughter, even though I was so angry at her I couldn't see straight. But slowly, things got better. Or maybe I just got better at seeing the good things. One morning in early December, I found Connor in the living room at dawn. He was on the floor with a bin of toy cars I'd bought him at the thrift store, lining them up in a perfect row. But it wasn't random. He'd arranged them by color, but in a way I couldn't understand at first. I sat on the couch and just watched, my coffee getting cold. Red car, then one that was slightly more orange, then one more orange than the last, then yellow green, then green, on and on. A gradient so subtle I had to squint to see the differences between some of them. He'd organized 27 toy cars by the tiniest variations in shade. "That's amazing, Connor," I said softly. He didn't look at me, but his rocking slowed just a little. I took that as acknowledgement. December brought something I hadn't expected, a phone call. It was Christmas Eve. I'd spent the afternoon making sugar cookies, trying to create some kind of holiday magic, even though I had no idea if Connor cared about Christmas. He sat at the kitchen table watching me work, not helping, just observing. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and butter. The phone rang. I grabbed it with flour-covered hands, hoping against hope. "Mom," my heart stopped. "Isabel, thank God. When are you coming to get him? Connor needs you. I can't do this anymore, Mom." Her voice was flat, dead. I can't. I stopped moving, the cookie cutter frozen in my hand. "What?" "He's yours. I tried. I really, really tried, but I can't be his mother. I'm not built for it." "Isabel, wait!" The line went dead. I called back immediately. It rang and rang. No answer. I tried again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I stood there in my kitchen with the phone in my hand, my whole world tilting sideways. The cookies were burning in the oven. Smoke started curling up from the edges. I turned off the oven and pulled out the tray. The cookies were black, ruined. I sat down on the floor right there, just sat with my back against the cabinet, and stared at nothing. Connor appeared in the doorway. He looked at me for a long moment, longer than he'd ever looked at me before. Then he walked to the counter, picked up his blue dinosaur cup, and brought it to me. He set it on the floor beside me gently, carefully. I looked at the cup, looked at him. He was 5 years old, and his mother had just abandoned him, and somehow he was the one comforting me. He went back to the living room. I sat there on the kitchen floor with a burnt cookie sheet and a blue plastic cup and cried harder than I'd cried since my husband died 12 years before. When I finally pulled myself together, I made a decision. If Isabel wasn't coming back, and I knew in my bones she wasn't, then I was going to be the best grandmother Connor could have. I was going to fight for him. I was going to love him exactly as he was. I didn't know then how much fighting I'd have to do. I didn't know about the school battles, the sleepless nights, the moments when I'd question everything. And I definitely didn't know that Connor was already starting to build something that would save us both. The years after that Christmas blurred together in a way that both dragged and flew by. I kept everything exactly the same for Connor. Same breakfast every morning, eggs and toast. Same route everywhere we went. Same bedtime routine, which was just me saying goodnight from his doorway, while he arranged things on his dresser in patterns only he understood. When I kept things consistent, he was okay. Not happy, maybe, but okay. And okay felt like a miracle some days. When Connor turned 6, he became obsessed with a set of magnetic letters I'd bought at the dollar store. He'd arranged them on my refrigerator for hours. Not words, patterns, groups and sequences I couldn't understand. Circles of vowels, lines of consonants organized by some system in his mind. "Should I be worried about this?" I asked Jennifer Walsh, his speech therapist, one afternoon. Jennifer watched Connor through the window of her office. He was in the waiting room, reorganizing the magazines by size. "He's tracking his world," she said, "creating order where he can control it. It helps him feel secure. Let him do it." So I did. The refrigerator became his canvas. Every morning I'd find a new pattern. Every evening he'd change it before bed. Then he started drawing symbols in little notebooks from the dollar store. Spirals, tick marks, circles connected by lines. Tracking something only he understood. I bought him a pack of 10 notebooks. He filled them all in 3 months. By the time he turned 7, the symbols became letters, then short words written in neat block capitals. EGG, toast, school, home. Simple things that mattered to him. At 8, he was writing full sentences. 7 o'clock breakfast, 7:30 car, 8 o'clock school, 3 o'clock home, 6 o'clock dinner. Times and events, documenting every day in careful handwriting. He also started making eye contact, not often, just little flickers, like he was checking to see if I was still there, still safe, still the same. "He's coming along beautifully," Dr. Chen said at one of our behavioral therapy check-ins. "You're doing everything right, Francis." I didn't feel like I was doing anything right. I felt like I was barely holding on. But Connor was talking now, at least to me. He could tolerate the grocery store if we went at exactly 9 a.m. on Saturdays. He'd learned that I wasn't going to leave, wasn't going to change things without warning. That was something. One morning in spring when he was 8, I was making breakfast. Eggs and toast, same as always. Connor sat at the table with his notebook, writing something with intense concentration. "Why did Mom leave?" he asked. I nearly dropped the spatula. I turned around, my heart pounding. Connor was looking at his notebook, not at me, but he'd spoken a full sentence. A question. The question I'd been dreading for 3 years. I sat down across from him, my hands shaking. "She said she couldn't handle it." He nodded once, wrote something in his notebook, probably documenting my answer, then went back to staring at the page. I got up and finished making breakfast, put his plate in front of him with steady hands, even though inside I was breaking. Then I went to the bathroom and cried where he couldn't hear me. He'd asked the question I didn't know how to answer, but I'd told him the truth. That's all I could do. The truth, and eggs and toast every morning, and that same blue dinosaur cup. That would have to be enough. A year after Connor first asked me about Isabel, the school called with a problem. It was September 2014. Connor was 9, starting 4th grade. I thought we'd moved past the hardest parts. He was talking in full sentences now, eating in the cafeteria without meltdowns, even raising his hand in class sometimes. Progress. Then Principal Gregory Thompson wanted to meet. "Mrs. Harrington, we need to discuss Connor's placement," he said over the phone. He had that professional voice, the one I recognized from my own decades in classrooms. Reasonable, patient, condescending. "What's the problem?" I kept my voice neutral. "Connor would be better served in our special needs classroom. The other students are moving at a different pace." I gripped the phone. "Connor keeps up with the work." "It's not about academics, Mrs. Harrington. It's about behavior. He doesn't participate in group activities. He won't make eye contact during circle time. Yesterday he covered his ears during music class and disrupted the entire lesson. Because it's loud. He has sensory issues. We have a program designed for children like Connor. It would be less stressful for everyone. Less stressful for the teacher, he meant. I want an IEP meeting, I said. Silence, then. We can arrange that. This week. Mrs. Harrington, this week, or I'll have my own advocate there with lawyers. I didn't actually have an advocate or lawyers, but he didn't need to know that. The meeting was on Friday afternoon in a conference room at the school. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the kind that would have driven Connor crazy. Principal Thompson sat at the head of the table. Connor's teacher, Mrs. Rebecca Foster, sat next to him, along with the school psychologist Dr. Lisa Morgan and special education coordinator Patricia Wells. All of them had folders. I had one folder, but it was thick. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Harrington," Principal Thompson said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We want what's best for Connor." "So do I." Mrs. Foster spoke first. Soft voice, sympathetic smile. "Connor is a sweet boy, but he struggles socially. He doesn't interact with peers. During group work, he sits alone. He refuses to participate. Does he do the work? I asked. She hesitated. Yes, but education isn't just about worksheets. It's about learning to work with others, to communicate. He's autistic, I interrupted. Communication is harder for him, but he's trying. Patricia Wells leaned forward. Our resource room offers a smaller setting, fewer distractions, students who understand his challenges. Students who can't keep up academically, I said flatly. That's not Connor. Principal Thompson used that principal voice again. We understand you want Connor in a mainstream classroom, Mrs. Harrington, but we have to consider the needs of all students. You're telling me Connor is disruptive. Not disruptive exactly. Then what's the problem? Dr. Morgan opened her folder. Connor's social skills assessment shows significant delays. His IQ testing was inconclusive because he refused to finish several sections. Because they were timed and that made him anxious. His therapist documented that. Which brings us back to our point, Principal Thompson said smoothly. Connor needs support we can't provide in a regular classroom. I opened my folder and pulled out the first document. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I was done being polite. This is Connor's reading comprehension test from last month. I slid it across the table. 97% 7th grade level. I pulled out another paper. Math assessment. 100%. 5th grade material. Another. Therapy notes showing his progress in speech, emotional regulation, and sensory tolerance. Another. His perfect attendance record. I kept pulling papers, stacking them in front of Principal Thompson. Connor has come further in 4 years than anyone predicted. Not because he's in a special room with low expectations. Because people believed he could do more. Mrs. Foster looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Harrington, it's not about expectations. Yes, it is. You want him somewhere else because he makes you uncomfortable, because he doesn't perform normal the way you want normal to look. The room went quiet. Principal Thompson cleared his throat. Mrs. Harrington, I understand you're frustrated. Under IDEA, Connor has the right to the least restrictive environment. That means a mainstream classroom with appropriate supports, not segregation because he's different. I shouldn't have used that word, segregation, but I was tired of fighting. We're not suggesting segregation, Patricia Wells said quickly, just a more appropriate setting. Then provide the supports in his current classroom. Noise-canceling headphones for music, extra time for transitions, a quiet space if he gets overwhelmed. That's accommodation, not removal. They looked at each other. Something passed between them. Resignation, maybe? Or just exhaustion at dealing with a grandmother who wouldn't back down. We'll draft an IEP with those accommodations, Principal Thompson said finally. But if Connor continues to struggle, he won't. I didn't actually know that, but I knew giving up on him wasn't the answer. That evening, I spread all the meeting notes across my kitchen table and started organizing them into a 3-ring binder. Color-coded tabs for medical, educational, therapy, legal. My hands knew this work from years in classrooms. Connor came in from the living room. He'd been watching his show, the same episode he watched every Friday. His blue cup sat on the counter where he always left it. What are you doing? His speech had grown stronger over the year, more fluid, making sure the school can't forget what you can do. He moved closer, studying the papers. Can I help? I glanced at him, surprised. Sure, sweetie. We worked together for an hour. I showed him how I was organizing everything. Medical records here, school assessments there, therapy progress notes in this section. Connor studied my system, then pointed to the therapy tab. These should be sorted by date first, then by type. Speech separate from occupational, separate from behavioral. I looked at where he was pointing. He was right. That made more sense. Show me, I said. He rearranged the entire section in 10 minutes, creating a system I wouldn't have thought of. Logical, clean, perfect. I watched him work, his hands moving quickly, completely focused. He understood organization on a level I'd never reach. Pattern and structure and order. It came naturally to him the way breathing came to other people. That's really good, Connor, I said when he finished. He nodded. Didn't smile, but I could tell he was pleased. The next year, when Connor turned 10, Jennifer Walsh suggested a tablet for communication support. Something he can type on when speaking feels too hard, she explained. I saved up and bought him one for his birthday, Not a fancy one, just a basic tablet from Best Buy. Connor had it figured out in a day. Within a week, he'd downloaded a scanning app and started photographing every page of his notebooks, creating digital copies. I watched him work one afternoon, methodical and focused, preserving everything he'd ever written. "Why are you doing that?" "So I don't lose it," he said, not looking up from the screen. That made sense. Connor hated losing things. But then he asked for his birth certificate, his social security card, his school enrollment papers, anything with his name on it. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Is this about your mom?" "I just want to see everything. Make sure it's all there." I assumed he was processing what had happened, trying to understand why Isabel left, what his life looked like on paper. It made sense for a kid who organized the world in categories and files. I helped him scan everything into his tablet. Birth records, medical history, every legal document I had in my filing cabinet. He saved them all carefully, backed them up, created folders with labels I didn't quite understand. "What are you building?" I asked once. "A system," he said, "so nothing gets lost." I kissed the top of his head. "Okay, buddy. Whatever helps." I thought he was coping with his past. I had no idea he was preparing for his future. That future started taking shape the summer Connor turned 12. He'd been scanning documents for months by then, organizing everything with a focus I'd learned not to interrupt. But in June 2017, he discovered something new: coding. I found him at the kitchen table one afternoon with my old laptop open, staring at a screen full of text that looked like gibberish to me. Lines of words and symbols and brackets in different colors. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Learning Python." "What's Python?" "A programming language. I'm following a tutorial." I leaned over his shoulder. The screen showed instructions about variables and functions and loops. None of it made sense to me. "Is this for school?" "No, I just want to learn it." I left him alone. That's what worked with Connor. Let him follow what interested him. He spent the entire summer on that laptop. While other kids were at baseball camp or the pool, Connor was coding. I'd bring him lunch and he'd eat without looking away from the screen. His blue cup sat beside the laptop, half full of water he'd forget to drink. By August, he was showing me things he'd made. Little programs that did tasks I didn't understand. "This one sorts files by date," he explained, his voice animated in a way it rarely was. "This one finds duplicates. This one checks if a file has been modified." "That's really impressive, Connor." He nodded and kept typing. In September, I used the last of my savings to buy him a better computer. A real one with a big screen and actual processing power, not my hand-me-down laptop that took 5 minutes to start up. The man at the electronics store asked what Connor would use it for. "Programming," Connor said. "How old are you?" 12. The man smiled. "That's a good age to start. You'll go far, kid." Connor didn't respond, just waited for me to pay. One evening in October, Connor called me to his room. "I want to show you something." I sat on the edge of his bed. He pulled up a program on his screen. "What is it?" I asked. "Watch." He opened a document, a simple text file with a few sentences about the weather. Then he ran his program. Numbers appeared on the screen, long strings of them. "That's the document signature," he said, "like a fingerprint." Okay, I didn't really understand. He opened the document again, changed one word, saved it, and ran the program again. Different numbers appeared. "See? The signature changed. That means the document was altered." "So you can tell if someone edits something?" "Yes. And when. And how many times." He looked at me, actually made eye contact for a moment. So things stay true. I thought about all those school meetings. All those times administrators had said one thing, then claimed later they'd said something else. All the times I'd wished I had proof. "That's brilliant, Connor." He turned back to his screen. "It's just pattern recognition. Digital instead of physical. Just pattern recognition. As if that wasn't everything." The next year, when he was 13, the project expanded. "I want to digitize all your binders," he said one morning at breakfast. "The school meeting notes, all of it." I looked at him over my coffee. "That's a lot of scanning." "I know, but I want everything in the system." "What system?" "The one I'm building, so nothing gets lost or changed." I thought about it. Those binders held years of fights, years of advocacy, years of proof that Connor wasn't what people assumed he was. "Okay," I sassy said. But you're doing the scanning. My back can't handle that many hours hunched over. We spent weeks on it. I'd pull out binders and Connor would scan page after page. IEP meeting notes from 2014, therapy assessments from 2012, report cards, progress notes, incident reports, every piece of paper that told Connor's story. But he didn't just scan them. He did something to each file on his computer, adding layers of information I couldn't see. "What are you adding?" I asked once, watching code scroll across his screen. "Timestamps, verification codes, hash values." He paused, searching for words I'd understand. "Each document connects to the ones before and after it, like a chain. If someone tries to change one link, the whole chain breaks." "Why would someone change them?" He looked at me. "Why did Principal Thompson try to move me when I was 9? Fair point." "So this protects the truth," they said. Yes, but that spring, Connor hit a wall. I found him one night staring at his computer screen, his jaw tight with frustration. Lines of red error messages filled the monitor. "What's wrong?" I asked. "It doesn't work." His voice was strained. "The hash algorithm works for text files but fails on PDFs, and the verification is too slow for large documents. It's broken." I'd never heard him sound like this. Defeated. "Can you fix it?" "I don't know how." He looked at me and his eyes were wet. "I've tried everything I can think of." I sat down beside him. "Then maybe you need help." That help came from an unexpected place. Connor had been watching MIT OpenCourseWare videos, free computer science lectures online. He found one professor whose explanations made sense to him. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a computer scientist specializing in data verification and cryptography. Connor did something I'd never seen him do before. He emailed her. Just cold emailed a professor at MIT and explained what he was trying to build. I didn't think she'd respond. Why would she? But 3 days later, she did. "She wants to do a video call," Connor said, his voice tight with something between excitement and terror. "Tomorrow at 7. I helped him set it up. At 6:55, Connor sat at the kitchen table with my laptop positioned just right, his hands shaking slightly. At 7 o'clock exactly, Dr. Mitchell's face appeared on the screen. She was in her 40s, with short gray hair and kind eyes behind frameless glasses. "Connor Harrington?" "Yes, ma'am." "I read your email 3 times. You're trying to build a document verification system that can prove chain of custody and detect alterations across multiple file formats." "Yes." "How old are you?" 13. She was quiet for a moment. "And you're stuck on the PDF problem." "Yes. The hash function works on text but fails on binary files, and the blockchain verification is too computationally expensive for real-time use." She smiled. "Okay, let's figure this out together." For the next 2 hours, I watched Dr. Mitchell teach my grandson. Not in a condescending way, not like he was a child. She talked to him like a colleague, drawing diagrams, explaining concepts, asking what he'd tried. When the call ended, Connor's face was flushed. "She wants to meet again next week." Over the next 6 months, Connor and Dr. Mitchell had video calls every Tuesday evening. She became his mentor, his teacher, the person who believed he could build something revolutionary. She also taught him something I couldn't: how to fail. "This doesn't work," Connor said one Tuesday, showing her his latest attempt at the verification algorithm. "Good," Dr. Mitchell said. "Now you know one way that doesn't work. That's not failure, Connor. That's data. Each error tells you something." Slowly, with Dr. Mitchell's guidance, Connor's system came together. The hash algorithm that worked across file types, the verification that was fast enough to be practical, the interface that made sense. By the time Connor turned 14 in November 2018, he had something real, something powerful. One night that winter, I brought him tea at 1 a.m. His room was cold. He always kept it cold, and 3 monitors glowed in the darkness, each showing different screens of code and documents and data. "What are you making?" I asked, setting the tea beside his keyboard. He paused, turned to look at me, really look at me. "Something that will help people know what's real and what's fake, what actually happened versus what someone claims happened." "That's really important to you." "Yes." "Because of your mom?" He thought about that. "Because people lie, and sometimes you need proof." I kissed the top of his head. His hair needed cutting again. Don't stay up all night. I won't. He did anyway. I'd find him asleep at his desk some mornings, head on his arms, monitor still glowing. I'd put a blanket over him and make breakfast. He'd wake up an hour later and come to the kitchen like nothing had happened. I was proud of him. Proud of his dedication, his intelligence, his drive to create something meaningful. I just didn't understand what it was really for. I thought he was healing from the past, building something to process his trauma, to make sense of what had happened to him. I didn't know he was building armor for a war he knew was coming. Connor was 15 when he finished it. Spring 2020. The world locked down, everyone suddenly living online. Connor barely noticed the difference. He'd been living in his room with his computers for years already. I want to show you something, he said one afternoon in May. I followed him to his room. 3 monitors, all showing different screens. He pulled up a program with a clean, simple interface. Nothing fancy, just boxes and buttons and text. This is it, he said, the verification system. What does it do? He clicked through screens, showing me features I only half understood. It analyzes documents, checks if they've been altered, when they were created, if the signatures match other known samples. It catches forgeries. I watched the program run through a sample document. Numbers appeared, graphs, analysis results. So if someone fakes a document, this catches it. Yes, the metadata, the digital fingerprints, the patterns. It sees what people can't. That's incredible, Connor. He nodded, his expression serious. I'm going to sell it. To who? Security companies, fraud prevention, anyone who needs to verify documents are real. He said it so matter-of-factly, like it was obvious. My 15-year-old grandson was going to sell software to companies. Do you know how to do that? I asked. I've been researching. Dr. Mitchell is helping me. Of course he had. Connor started reaching out to companies that month. He sent emails with professional language that I helped him polish, though his direct way of writing was often clearer than most business communication I'd seen. The first 3 companies passed. Too specialized, they said. Too niche. One didn't even respond. The 4th company offered him $50,000. Connor showed me the email, his face expressionless. That's a lot of money, I said carefully. It's not enough. The system is worth more. How do you know? Because I built it. I know what it can do. He turned them down. The 5th company was different. Anderson Security, a mid-sized firm in Boston that handled fraud prevention for banks and insurance companies. Their CEO, Michael Chen, got on a video call with Connor. I sat just off camera, watching my grandson explain his system to a man in an expensive suit. The algorithm compares hash values across multiple verification layers, Connor said, his voice steady. It can detect alterations down to a single character change, even in encrypted files. Show me, Chen said. Connor walked him through a demonstration, changed a comma in a document. The system caught it. Changed a date. The system caught it. Showed him the complete audit trail of every modification. Chen was quiet for a long moment. How old are you, Connor? 15. Who helped you build this? Dr. Sarah Mitchell at MIT mentored me, but I wrote all the code myself. This is remarkable. Chen leaned forward. We'd like to make an offer. $3.2 million for complete acquisition. You'd receive payment in full, and we'd handle all future development and support. There would be a 5-year non-compete clause, standard for acquisitions like this. I nearly choked. $3.2 million. Connor didn't even blink. Can I see the contract? We found a business lawyer through Dr. Mitchell's recommendation. James Rivera specialized in intellectual property and software licensing. He met with us on a Saturday morning at our kitchen table, spread out the contract and 2 other competing offers that had come in after Anderson's. These are all substantial, he said, looking at Connor. You built something valuable. Connor nodded. Which one is best? James walked him through the options. Licensing deals that would pay over time, Anderson's acquisition offer that would buy it outright. I want to sell it completely, Connor said finally. I don't want to manage licensing or support or updates. Just sell it and be done. James looked surprised. You're sure? Licensing could pay more long-term. There's a non-compete clause in the acquisition, Connor said. If I sell it, I can't make competing verification software for 5 years. That's standard, James said. Does that bother you? No. Connor's voice was flat, certain. I'm done with this kind of software. I glanced at him. He said it so definitely, like he'd already planned what came next. He sold it in March 2021 for $3.2 million. $3.2 million. I couldn't process that number. I'd worked 35 years as a teacher and made maybe half that total before taxes. The local news heard about it somehow. A producer named Kate Morrison called, wanted to do a story about the local autistic teen who'd created revolutionary security software. I don't know, I said to Connor. I don't want them turning you into inspiration material. I'll do it, Connor said. It's fine. Kate came on a Thursday afternoon. Young woman, enthusiastic, with a cameraman who set up lights in our living room. She asked if she could film Connor at his computer. Can you explain what your software does? She asked, holding a microphone. It verifies document authenticity through pattern recognition and metadata analysis, Connor said, looking at the camera the way he'd look at anyone. Direct, unflinching. It catches forgeries that people miss. What made you want to create this? I tensed, but Connor answered simply. I wanted to know what was real. People lie. Documents don't, if you know how to read them correctly. Kate smiled. That's very insightful. Do you have plans for what you'll do with the money? Not yet. She tried a few more questions, but Connor's answers were short, factual, not the emotional human interest story she clearly wanted. After 20 minutes, she thanked us and left. The segment aired Friday evening. Local teen creates revolutionary security software. They used maybe 2 minutes of the interview, added dramatic music, showed Connor at his computer looking focused and brilliant. I watched it with him on our couch. How do you feel? I asked when it ended. Fine. But I noticed something in the days after. He wasn't celebrating, wasn't excited about the money or the attention or what came next. He was just waiting, watching. I'd catch him staring out the window sometimes, or sitting at the kitchen table with his blue cup, not drinking, just holding it. You okay? I asked one morning. Yeah, but he wasn't. Something had shifted, some tension I couldn't name. 2 weeks after the news story aired, I found out why. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was folding laundry in the living room when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Connor was in his room. I opened the door, and my entire world stopped. A woman in a gray suit stood on my porch. Expensive-looking, perfect hair, makeup subtle and professional. A man beside her in a dark suit, carrying a leather briefcase. The woman smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Hi, Mom. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. My body had forgotten how to breathe. Isabel. She looked older. 11 years older. Lines around her mouth, tension in her jaw. But it was her. My daughter who'd left her son on this same porch and never looked back. Isabel. My voice came out strangled. She looked past me into the house. Connor? I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My mind was screaming at me to close the door, to protect Connor, but I was frozen. I'm Stephen Walsh, the man said smoothly. Mrs. Harrington's attorney. We'd like to speak with you about Connor's situation. His situation? I managed. Isabel's smile got tighter. Can we come in? This is important. I should have said no, should have slammed the door in their faces. But I just stood there, paralyzed by shock and fear. Connor appeared behind me in the hallway. He looked at Isabel. His face was completely blank. No surprise, no emotion, nothing. He just watched her the way he'd watched traffic patterns or pricing errors. Analytical, calculating. Come in, he said. My legs moved without my permission. I stepped back. They came into my house, Isabel and her lawyer, and I felt sick. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Connor and I ate breakfast every morning, where we'd organized school meeting notes and planned his future. Now Isabel sat there, hands folded, while her lawyer opened his briefcase. Mrs. Harrington, we're here to discuss custody and financial guardianship, Walsh said. Professional, smooth, practiced. My client, Isabel Harrington, has maintained parental rights to Connor and wishes to resume active custody. Custody? The word came out like a gasp. He's 16. Precisely, Walsh said. Still a minor. And my client never formally terminated parental rights. She's been co-parenting from a distance, maintaining contact through appropriate channels. That's a lie. My voice shook. She hasn't called in 11 years. She hasn't. Isabel spoke then. Soft voice, sad eyes that looked practiced. Mom, I know you've done a wonderful job raising Connor, but he needs his mother now, especially with the money and the attention. He needs guidance. He has guidance. I could barely breathe. Walsh pulled out papers, documents with official-looking seals and signatures. These show Mrs. Harrington has maintained legal parental rights. She's documented her financial support and communication over the years. She's entitled to custody and given Connor's minor status, management of his financial assets until he reaches majority. I looked at the papers. They looked real, professional. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. Those are fake, I said, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. They're properly notarized and filed, Walsh said calmly, unless you can prove otherwise. I looked at Connor. He was watching Isabel, his face still blank, but I could see something in his eyes, something I couldn't read. Connor, I said quietly, what do we do? He looked at me for 1 second, then back at Isabel. We should get a lawyer, he said. I found Linda Reyes through a colleague's referral. Family law attorney, 20 years of experience. She came to our house because I couldn't face going to an office, couldn't face being anywhere but home where I felt safe. I brought every binder I had, years of school records, therapy notes, medical appointments, every piece of paper proving I'd raised Connor. My hands shook the entire time I carried them to the kitchen table. Connor sat quietly beside me, watching, always watching. Linda spread Isabel's documents across the table. She studied them for over an hour, reading every page, checking signatures, examining stamps. Finally, she looked up. Her face told me everything before she spoke. These look legitimate, she said carefully. Very professionally done. But they're fake, I said. She's lying. She hasn't seen him in 11 years. I believe you, Mrs. Harrington. But without concrete proof these documents are forged, a judge might rule in her favor. I pulled out my binders. I have everything. Every school meeting, every doctor visit, every therapy session. Linda looked through them, nodded slowly. This is excellent documentation. It proves you've been the primary caregiver, but without hard evidence that her documents are fake. She paused. Did you ever file for formal guardianship? The room went cold. I had temporary guardianship, but I didn't think I needed to make it permanent. She abandoned him. I know, but legally, without a documentation of that abandonment, without her signing away rights, she's still his parent on paper. Linda's voice was gentle but firm. Her lawyer will argue that your informal arrangement doesn't override parental rights. And Mrs. Harrington, she's not trying to take physical custody. He's 16. Courts rarely force teenagers to move. She's after financial guardianship, control of his assets until he's 18. $3.2 million. That's what this was about. Can we fight it? I asked. Yes, but I need you to understand. Her case looks strong. She has documentation, a compelling narrative about maintaining involvement from a distance. Unless we can prove those documents are fraudulent, we might lose. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Connor. He sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, face blank. Connor, I said quietly, do you understand what's happening? Yes. Are you scared? He thought about that. No. How could he not be scared? I was terrified. The deposition started 2 weeks later. Isabel went first. She sat in the conference room at Walsh's office, perfectly composed. Hair styled, makeup subtle, wearing a soft gray sweater that made her look maternal. Walsh asked her questions. She answered smoothly, like she'd rehearsed every word. Can you describe your involvement in Connor's life over the past 11 years? I've tried to maintain consistent contact, she said. Her voice was steady, warm, apologetic. I visited monthly when possible, sent financial support through money orders, called regularly to check on his progress. Why didn't you take physical custody? I felt it was better for Connor to have stability with my mother while I dealt with personal challenges. But I never stopped being his mother. I never stopped caring. She provided dates, specific months when she claimed to have visited, exact dollar amounts she supposedly sent. December 2012, $300. April 2014, $500. May 2017, called to discuss his progress in school. On and on. A detailed financial record of support that never happened. I sat there listening, nails digging into my palms. Every word was a lie, but she said it all with such conviction. "Mrs. Harrington, why are you seeking custody arrangements now?" Walsh asked. "Because Connor has significant assets that need proper management, and because he's approaching adulthood. I want to be present for this crucial transition, to guide him, to make up for lost time." She looked at me when she said it. Sad eyes, regretful smile. I wanted to scream. After Isabel finished, Linda took me aside. Her testimony is detailed, consistent. That's very convincing to judges. "It's all lies." "I know, but can you prove it?" I couldn't. Connor's deposition was 3 days later. Walsh asked him questions about his childhood, about memories of his mother, about her involvement. "Do you remember your mother visiting you?" "I don't recall specific visits." "Do you remember phone calls from her?" "I'd have to check my records." "What about financial support? Did you know she was sending money?" "I don't remember receiving money from her." Walsh looked pleased. He thought Connor's memory was poor, that it supported Isabel's narrative, that she'd been involved. But Connor, being autistic, simply didn't remember clearly. He had no idea. Linda asked Connor questions too. "Can you describe your relationship with your grandmother?" "She takes care of me, cooks meals, helps with school. She's always been there." "Do you want to live with her?" "Yes." "Do you want your mother to have control of your finances?" "No." Short answers, direct, true, but they felt weak against Isabel's detailed lies. After the deposition, Linda drove us home. "He did well," she said. "But Mrs. Harrington, I have to be honest. Without evidence proving Isabel's documents are forged, this is going to be difficult." "How difficult?" "We might lose." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Connor being taken away, Isabel controlling his money, him turning 18 and being free, but those 2 years feeling like forever. At 3 a.m, I got up, saw light under Connor's door. I opened it quietly. He was at his computer. 3 monitors glowing. Lines of code scrolled across one screen. Documents and data filled the others. "Connor, it's 3 a.m. Court is tomorrow." He didn't turn around. "I know. You need to sleep." "I'm almost done." "Done with what?" He kept typing. "My records." I moved closer, saw spreadsheets with dates, files with names. I recognized my bank statements, calendar entries, phone records. "Connor, I don't know what to do." My voice broke. "I don't know how to fight this." He stopped typing, didn't turn around, just sat there. "Tell the truth tomorrow," he said quietly. "That's all you have to do." "The truth isn't enough. She has documents. She has proof. Fake proof, but proof." "Tell the truth," he repeated. I wanted to shake him, to make him understand how serious this was. But he just sat there, calm, focused, like losing me didn't matter. I went back to bed. Didn't sleep. Just lay there in the dark, terrified. Connor stayed at his computer all night. I heard the keyboard clicking until dawn. Morning came whether I wanted it to or not. I got up at 6, made breakfast neither of us would eat. Connor came out of his room at 7, showered, dressed in the button-down shirt we'd bought for court. He looked older than 16, tired but calm. "You ready?" I asked. "Yes." We drove to the courthouse in silence. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Connor stared out the window. Linda met us on the steps. "Remember, stay calm. Let me do the talking. Connor, answer questions directly, but don't volunteer information." Connor nodded. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, that smell of old paper and floor polish. Judge Margaret Harrison sat at the bench, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back. Isabel sat at the front table with Walsh. She'd dressed carefully, soft colors, minimal jewelry, hair loose. She looked like a concerned mother. We sat at our table, Linda on one side of me, Connor on the other. "All rise," the bailiff said. The hearing began. Walsh stood, presented his case smoothly. Isabel Harrington, devoted mother, maintained consistent involvement despite personal challenges. Documentary evidence of parental rights never terminated, financial support provided, regular contact maintained. He laid out the documents on the evidence table. The custody papers, the co-parenting agreements, the financial records. All fake, all convincing. Judge Harrison reviewed them carefully. Then she looked at Isabel. Mrs. Harrington, can you describe your involvement in Connor's life over the past 11 years? Isabel's voice was steady, warm. I tried to stay connected as much as possible, Your Honor. I visited when I could. I sent money to help with his care. I called regularly to check on his progress. Why didn't you maintain physical custody? I felt it was better for Connor to have stability with my mother while I addressed personal issues, but I never abandoned him. I never stopped being his mother. She said it with such conviction, such sincerity. The judge looked thoughtful. Then it was Linda's turn. She presented my binders, years of school meetings, therapy records, medical appointments, every piece of evidence that I'd raised Connor alone. But I could see the judge's expression. Sympathy, but doubt. Ms. Reyes, Judge Harrison said, these records show Mrs. Harrington has been the primary caregiver, but I don't see formal guardianship documentation. No court order transferring custody, no legal termination of parental rights. My chest tightened. Your Honor, Linda said carefully, Isabel Harrington abandoned Connor when he was 5 years old. My client has documentation of that abandonment, but without Mrs. Harrington's signature on custody termination papers, without legal documentation, her parental rights remain intact. The room tilted. Isabel looked at Walsh, smiled slightly. She thought she'd won. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't breathe. I looked at Connor beside me, desperate for something, anything. His face was completely blank, unreadable. I leaned close, whispered, She's lying. We have to stop her. He turned his head slightly, whispered back, Let her talk. What? Let her say everything she wants to say. I didn't understand. We were losing, and he wanted Isabel to keep talking. Judge Harrison looked at Connor. Young man, do you wish to speak? Long pause. Connor sat perfectly still. Then he stood. Yes, Your Honor. I have evidence. My heart stopped. What evidence? I'd given Linda everything I had. Approach, Judge Harrison said. Connor picked up a bag I hadn't noticed him carrying. Walked to the witness stand, calm, steady, like he'd done this 100 times. He pulled out a laptop. May I connect this to the display, Your Honor? Judge Harrison looked surprised. What are you presenting? Verification of document authenticity and timeline evidence. He spoke clearly, directly, the way he always did. I built a system that proves whether documents are real or forged. Walsh stood immediately. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We weren't informed of this evidence. Your client presented fraudulent documents 6 weeks ago, Connor said, looking at Walsh. I'm presenting analysis of those documents now. Judge Harrison studied Connor. Proceed, but this better be relevant. Connor connected his laptop. The courtroom display lit up. He pulled up Isabel's custody documents first, the ones Walsh had presented. They appeared on the screen, official-looking with stamps and signatures. These documents claim to be from 2011 through 2020, Connor said, but the digital metadata shows they were created 6 weeks ago, right after the news story about my sale aired. He clicked through screens. Creation dates, file properties, editing history, all time-stamped, all recent. Walsh objected. Metadata can be manipulated. Not in this case, Connor said calmly. The signature verification shows additional discrepancies. He pulled up my copy of his birth certificate. Isabel's signature from 2005, then ran a program that analyzed the signatures on the custody documents. Numbers appeared. Comparisons, statistical analysis. The pressure patterns don't match. The letter formation is inconsistent. The spacing and slant are different. These signatures were forged. Judge Harrison leaned forward. How do you know this? I built a verification system. It analyzes documents for authenticity. It's what I sold last month. You're 16, the judge said. Yes, she blinked. Continue. Connor pulled up a new screen, a timeline. These are my records. I've been documenting my life since I was 9 years old. He showed spreadsheets, scanned documents, photographs. All time-stamped, all verified. Mrs. Harrington claims she visited in December 2013. Here's my grandmother's calendar from that month showing our schedule. Here are photos from that week with timestamps. Here's my therapy session notes from December 9th. Therapist confirmed no mother present. Here's the school attendance record showing I was present every day that month. He clicked through more screens. December 2013. Isabel wasn't there. Mrs. Harrington claims she sent money orders. Here are 7 years of my grandmother's complete bank records. No deposits from Isabel Harrington. Not $1. Bank statements appeared on screen. Every transaction highlighted. Every source documented. Nothing from Isabel. Mrs. Harrington claims she called regularly. Here are phone company records from 2010 to present. 0 calls from her number after December 24th, 2010. Phone records. Years of them. Isabel's number nowhere. Every claim Isabel had made, Connor demolished with proof. Walsh stood again. Your Honor, this evidence wasn't disclosed in discovery. Because you presented fraudulent documents 6 weeks ago, Connor said. I built the verification system to analyze them. That's impossible, Walsh said. You couldn't build something like this in 6 weeks. I didn't. Connor's voice was level. I've been building it for 7 years. I just finished analyzing these specific documents 6 weeks ago. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Judge Harrison stared at him. You've been documenting your life for 7 years? Yes, Your Honor. Every calendar entry my grandmother made, every receipt she kept, every therapy session, every school meeting, every bank transaction. Everything is time-stamped, cross-referenced, and verified. The system makes it impossible to alter retroactively. He pulled up more screens, showed the judge how it worked, how each document connected to others, how the verification codes proved nothing had been changed. So when Mrs. Harrington says she visited monthly, sent money, called regularly, I can prove she didn't, because I have proof of what actually happened. What was real? The silence was deafening. Judge Harrison looked at Isabel. Her face had gone pale. Mrs. Harrington, can you explain these discrepancies? Isabel's voice shook. The metadata could be wrong. The dates might be... I did visit. I did send money. When exactly? The judge asked. I thought... December 2013, I remember. Do you have proof? Receipts, photos, anything? Isabel stammered. I didn't keep records. I was there. I know I was there. But you have detailed financial records of money orders sent. Yes, those are... They show... She was falling apart, contradicting herself. The confident mother from 20 minutes ago was gone. Mrs. Harrington, Judge Harrison said coldly, did you or did you not falsify custody documents? No. My lawyer said... Walsh looked sick. Judge Harrison turned to Connor. This verification system, it's legitimate? Yes, Your Honor. I sold it last month to Anderson Security for $3.2 million. They verified its accuracy before purchase. The judge's eyebrows rose. Then she looked at the evidence again, at the timeline, at the proof that Isabel had been gone for 11 years. I've seen enough, she said. She ruled from the bench. No recess, no deliberation. Isabel Harrington, I find your testimony not credible and your documentation fraudulent. Full custody and guardianship is awarded to Frances Harrington. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for investigation of perjury and fraud. Isabel made a sound like choking. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel struck. It was over. Outside the courthouse, standing in the afternoon sun, I finally understood. You knew, I said to Connor. You've been protecting us all along. He nodded once. Didn't smile, just nodded. Isabel appeared on the courthouse steps. Alone. Walsh was gone. Her face was red from crying, makeup ruined, looking nothing like the composed woman who'd shown up at my door. I'm sorry, she said, barely a whisper. She looked at me, then at Connor. I know you won't believe me, but I need to say it. Connor watched her, his expression unreadable. After Connor was born, I couldn't... Her voice cracked. I couldn't feel anything. Everyone said motherhood would be natural, beautiful. But I just felt empty, terrified. When he wouldn't look at me, wouldn't respond, I thought it was my fault. I thought he knew I was broken. So you ran, I said, my voice hard. Yes. Tears ran down her face. And I was wrong. I know I was wrong. But 2 years ago I met someone, Derek. He said he could help me get Connor back. He's the one who made the documents. I didn't know they were so detailed, so fake. I thought, she looked at Connor, I thought I deserved another chance. I thought the money would help us start over. You thought the money would help you start over, Connor said quietly. Not me. You. Isabel had no answer for that. You have to live with what you did, I said. But Connor deserves better than your guilt. We left her standing on the courthouse steps, crying. In the car, Connor was quiet for a long time. Then he said, She's not the villain in this story. I glanced at him. What? Derek is. He manipulated her, used her guilt. She's weak, but she's not evil. Does that make it better? No, but it makes it true. 6 months later, things looked different. Connor couldn't work in data security anymore. The non-compete clause was clear, so he started a new company, software testing and quality assurance. I'm hiring people like me, he told me over breakfast one morning. Autistic people. We see patterns others miss. His first hire was Timothy Brooks. I recognized the name immediately. He'd been my student 20 years ago. I'd fought the school board for him in 4th grade. They'd said he'd never hold a job. Then Jessica Palmer, nonverbal, who communicated via tablet and was a genius at bug detection. Then David Kim, whose hyperfocus could find errors in millions of lines of code. I visited Connor's office one afternoon. Small space, 6 desks, everyone wearing headphones. Quiet, focused. Timothy saw me, took off his headphones. Mrs. Harrington, his voice cracked. You told Principal Thompson I wasn't broken, just different. Connor says the same thing. I couldn't speak, just nodded. Isabel got 2 years probation and 500 hours of community service at an autism resource center. 3 months into her sentence, I was dropping off donated supplies and saw her on the floor, reading to nonverbal children. She looked up, saw me. We both froze. The center director, not knowing who I was, said, That volunteer comes in extra hours. Says she's learning what she should have learned years ago. I didn't speak to Isabel, just watched for a moment, then left. Some things don't need words. On a Tuesday evening, I brought dinner to Connor's apartment like I always did. His blue dinosaur cup sat on the counter, chipped, faded after 16 years, but still his favorite. We ate at his small table, quiet, comfortable. I started clearing plates. Connor put his phone down. Francis. I turned around. He was looking at his hands. I know what you gave up for me. I sat back down, waited. Your friends stopped calling. You stopped going places. I heard you once turning down a trip because you couldn't leave me. He looked up at me. You could have sent me away like she did. School suggested it. You didn't. My throat was tight. You're my grandson. I know, but you chose it. Every day. Even when I couldn't say thank you. Silence. Just the hum of his refrigerator. It mattered, he said quietly. I know that now. I reached across the table, put my hand near his. Not touching, but close. You were worth every single day, I said. He nodded once. I know that now, too. We sat there a moment longer. Then I got up, finished the dishes while he opened his laptop. Same routine, same comfortable silence. But something important had been said. I kissed the top of his head on my way out. He didn't flinch. See you Tuesday, I said. Tuesday, he confirmed. I drove home through streets I'd driven 1,000 times before. Same route, same turns. The way Connor liked things, the way I'd learned to like things too. My phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Connor. Thank you. Just those 2 words. I smiled the whole way home. So that's my story. My daughter left her autistic son on my doorstep 11 years ago, and I raised him alone. Everyone said he'd never succeed. They were wrong. He built something worth millions, but more importantly, he built himself into someone extraordinary. Not despite his autism, because of who he is, exactly as he is. If you were in my shoes, could you forgive your own daughter for abandoning your grandson? I'm still working on that answer, but I know this. Connor doesn't need her forgiveness, and neither do I. We have something better. We have each other. We have the truth. And we have Tuesday dinners with a chipped blue dinosaur cup. That's enough.